ready to broadcast if you could let us know.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the Vale of North District Council General Licensing Committee. I'm Councillor Ron Backstone and I will be chairing this meeting. Two housekeeping announcements. Evacuation procedure. Basically, out of that door to the right, there's a door. Go straight out there. Democratic Services people will tell you what to do subsequently, but it's straight out the door, literally. And can we ensure that mobile telephones and any other devices are switched off silent during the meeting? Do we have apologies for absence? Yes, we do.
We have apologies from councillors Kira Bentley, Neil Fawcett, Oliver Fordler, Lucy Edward, Bethia Thomas, Val Shaw and Sackle.
This committee is asked to adopt and agree for me to sign as a correct record the minutes of the committee meeting on 21st of May 2026. Please could I have a proposer to accept them as correct record? Councillor Skin, do you have a seconder? So tell. Vote. Unanimous. Are there any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and any conflicts of interest in respect to items on the agenda for this meeting? I have no items of urgent business, but we do have two members of the public who should speak. Can I welcome Ray Hallock?
Ray Hallock, yes.
Chairman of the Southern Vale Taxi Drivers Association, who is registered to speak today. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Yet again, we're here before the Cabinet. And I'm fortunately going to have a major whinge. The Cabinet on several occasions have told the licensing department to engage with us, talk with us. Initially, we had a key meeting where they said that they were going to review the policy. We went, great, okay. Want to engage, want to sort it out. It affects us, it's our trade. The next thing we got was an email in October saying, we're going to have a meeting on a particular date at a time, which neither of us could attend. I responded straight back saying, look, I can't attend on that. We can't attend on that date. We can do it on the 1st of December. I then received an email back from Laura saying that she'd have to look for a different room or time for it. Then we went radio silence. We heard nothing. The next thing we get is the policy review is issued on the 20th of January. There's no consultation with us. No saying, what would you, what have you? None whatsoever. So then we say, fine, okay. We then do a consultation and submit a document which I've put in front of you, which explains what the trade is saying. Look, this is what we want. Can we have it? And again, it's been totally ignored. There's not a single thing we can see in there that shows that they have listened to us. I then asked when we were told that this meeting was taking place. We are then told we have 5 days in which to review it and make our comments, which is no time. The council has had licensing has had since October last year to now to prep this all up, and we have been thrown. Saying you have 5 days. How are we supposed to do it? We are asking for the committee to look at this and say, this is not fair. The council can say, the licensing can say, oh, we had done it. We said we could do that date. We'll let you know another day. Oh, we've spoken to licensing, to the trade, but not done anything. It's like talking to a brick wall. I get more response out of a brick wall. And then trying to get things done You don't have easy contact with the council. You have to you try ringing in. You don't have a direct link to them. You have to leave a message, and then they will come back eventually to you. Whereas beforehand, how can Wolverhampton turn a licensing around in 2 weeks, and this council takes as long as it does? I'd like to bring certain things to attention. Some of the points that are issued, if a driver gets 12 points on his license and he gets a year ban, it's a year ban. Yet this council says it's a 5-year ban. So he's got 4 years worth of unable to earn. Yes, he's got the points and he shouldn't have done that. I'm not excusing that. But these are things that we needed to talk to you about. New vehicles that are under a month old, they have to have a compliance test. It's not a full MOT. So why are we having to pay that? That should be a reduced item for a brand new vehicle. There is one that I've had a lot of members coming up to me saying that private hire cars are hovering around ranks and picking up work because the general public don't know that they're a private hire vehicle. And we've suggested that the vehicle must display a wording private hire booking on both sides of the vehicle. The signage should be a minimum of 460 mils by 150 mils. The signage should not be removed from the vehicle, licensed vehicle, excluding ones that have an exemption on the certificate on. A hackney carriage has to have a top light on. It cannot go around without having the top light on. It's not allowed to. We get points for it. So why should private hire bypass the thing? Licensing must be so busy because they haven't got inspectors out there.
Could you bring your remarks to a conclusion, please?
Yes, sorry. I'm asking that the committee refer this back to licensing before you make a decision, because it's just not working. We need that to be reviewed properly and communication properly. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from council?
Sure.
Yeah.
So first off, I apologise. I've never really sat on this committee before, so I'm going to ask some probably fairly dumb questions, but I don't really. So you've submitted changes you would like to see to the Bells policy.
We have, because we didn't have that meeting before the policy was issued, we had to then do on the consultation.
Yes.
And you've had over 100 responses to the consultation. This is part of that consultation that we as the trade submitted.
Okay, so you submitted it on the consultation, but you'd actually approached the council prior to that.
We would have liked to have done it before they put it out, but we gave a date we could do. We never heard anything back.
Okay. Right. So in terms of the policy changes that we'll decide on today, what kind of impact would they have on people who are part of your association, sort of immediate?
This consultation, this review, this policy change, it will last for 5 years.
Yeah.
So unless these things are dealt with now, we've got to wait another 5 years for them to do another policy review before we get it. And it's taken so long that another matter that is urgent is being put back and being told we can't do that until we've done the policy review.
So just to clarify with officers, I understand that we stipulate that we try to review every 5 years, but the 5 year is not a fixed period. So we can do that earlier, we can extend it out as well. Of course, it all comes with costs and time.
Yes,
So,
I would imagine there would be some work prior to the 5 years because of our LGR process.
yes.
There will be harmonisation, so it will be well before the 5 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Skipper.
Various of these points, I think, are included in the document that we're looking at. Have you seen the replies to your points?
we haven't seen anything like that. All we've got told, we had 5 days to review the policy review, which we had, and we'll give you the link, and we looked at.
But you
I
haven't
was
seen
working
the
out to
results.
3 o'clock in the morning because I'm an emergency driver, response driver.
But you haven't seen the responses to the consultation.
No,
The other question. In that case, perhaps we can go to our second speaker, Jason Atherton.
Yes, good afternoon. There's that also taxis having and also vice chair of the Drivers Association. So following on from Riley's comments, really, it's for me as an employer, these policies becoming far more difficult and have prevented me from employing people for a long time. I've raised this with licensing on many occasions at every opportunity at these committee meetings. The biggest point which is raised already is the time it takes. As already mentioned, Wolverhampton are turning applications around in 2 weeks. We all know that's caused a national problem, etc. But some of the things that we suggested, when we make an application, the very first thing we should be doing is a DVS, and it's not unless that's about to change. Yeah, these are the things that stop people from doing. We have a lot of expenses now that we have to shell out up front before we have a licensed driver tax, all out of our own pocket, none of it refundable. Medical's running in at nearly £200 for most doctors now. Driving assessments from people who are, in my opinion, not even fit to be doing the assessment, and there's no fixed price. Everything you see about a taxi, everything I do for my business, governed by this council, what I charge my customer, what I pay for it. But when we go out to have the things that we're insisting on having, there are no fixed prices on the optician for the eye test, no fixed prices on the doctors, no fixed price, you can't charge that, that's taking the mick. We have to just pay the market price. When I then ask for a tariff increase, I get told last year there was significant reduction in the cost of running my business. I don't know what world that came from, and then was told that the cost of my licence fee to the council was going up. So where was that reduction of business cost that applied to my business that clearly didn't apply to this council? I've already asked again ahead of this about a tariff, which should have been done in April. We were supposed to have an annual review and was told that wouldn't be able to be done until this was completed. So my disappointment is from what we've seen, unless we've read something wrong here, the 100+ responses from the trade have been ignored. There's very little change. So I asked the question why it's taken 7 months. And I was told in my email politely that we reminded you last year there was a reduction in cost of your business. I've had a pay rise to my staff on minimum wage 3 years on the trot, 2 years. It's April, over 24 months. I've had to legally pay all of that money. All of my costs have gone up. My fuel is up. My tyres are up. My service is up. My vehicle costs are up. My licence fees are up. Everything's up. And I've got a licensing department telling me we can't have the public overpaying for a tax. There are no taxis out there. You go to the taxi ranks and very most of the time there aren't taxis. People are waiting. When we talk about safeguarding the public, because I do like the paragraph that basically says your only role is to safeguard the public and not so much us that are out there in the world. If there are no taxis working late Friday and Saturday night because it's physically and financially just not worth our while. I don't run any taxis Friday and Saturday anymore. I can't afford to employ someone about. That means you've got vulnerable people standing around for up to an hour plus waiting for a taxi on the street. That's putting the public at risk. Yeah, if I can't make money, I can't invest money. If I can't invest money, I can't run a business and I can't employ people. And when I tell somebody it's going to take on average 5 months to get a taxi license and cost you the best part of £1,000, that interview is over. They don't want the job anymore. They want to work now. We have to do it. I've been reading so much about the government helping speeding, fast tracking lorry drivers and bus drivers since COVID. Not one thing has ever come out that says, let's help the taxi industry. Everything we get is killing us. It's killing our businesses. Day after week after year, every time it's the same. There's nothing that helps us as an industry, ever. I can't remember the last time I sat down and went, well, that's good for my business. It really is that bad. We've got the actions that we're taking against drivers. I've run buses in the past. I hold a transport management certificate for buses. We don't treat bus drivers and lorry drivers this punitive when they make a mistake. We're the only driving occupation that has a council that tells us what we can do and then can remove our right to earn a living because we made a mistake. We have a driver recently who waited 6 or 7 years, having lost his licence, contacted the licensee, he's given me permission to speak, and asked, can I reapply? And was told yes. He spent all his money having his medical, having his knowledge test, having his safeguarding, having his eyes, everything done, and was then refused his renewal based on information that was already held by the council. Why did they let him spend that money when they were going to refuse it anyway? We got a driver in Wantage who had an accident last April. Licence not renewed, not fit and proper. He hasn't even been to court for the accident yet. He's not been able to work since last April, and he hasn't been to court to fight whether he's actually guilty for the accident, a vehicle accident. And I just one, because you're going to want me to stop. The one that really gets us with the points for defects on vehicles, tyres. We had one recently where a tyre was damaged on the inside wall, not the outside. Can only have been caused by the crap state of our roads, the potholes, and he was punished for it. Because when he went for vehicle test and the vehicle's up in the air and the tester is underneath it, he can now see that. Are we expected to crawl underneath our vehicles in the dark at 5 a.m? That is not. And when you go, and I will make this the last point, when you then put all of that professionalism you want on us, yet you don't allow us to charge the public enough money to pay the professional rates of pay that is earned by bus and lorry drivers. We're £6 an hour behind what bus drivers earn because we can't charge enough money as an employer to actually employ and pay people a fair wage for what's expectable. And that's why people now do not want the job, me included. Thank you for your time.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so can I ask Laura Driscoll to...
Thank you, Chairman. So this report before you today, it brings before you the final draft of the revised joint taxi policy for consideration of adoption, and following the consultation on the draft which you reviewed in January. As the report outlines, the consultation ran for 7 weeks. It was sent to all licence holders, neighbouring local authorities and the police, and those registered on the council's corporate consultation database. We had 131 respondents complete the survey, roughly half being trade and half being members of the public. Of the respondents, 107 provided at least one qualitative comment for consideration. It was noted that 45 of the responses were either identical or very similar. I would believe that the South Wales Taxi Drivers Association perhaps provided a draft template response for use by their members and any other persons who wish to respond to support the association. Survey was split into 3 sections. There are changes that are specific to South Oxfordshire Vale White Horse. There are changes from the Department for Transport Best Practice Guidance. And there are amendments which relate to changes we've already made to how we work and guidance on existing legislation. In respect of the second section of those, the changes which come from the DFT's best practice guidance, the consultation made it clear respondents needed to focus their comments on any compelling local reasons why we should digress from that guidance. And so the report outlines how many responses were received on each of the 3 sections. And in addition, an other comment section of the report was compiled where the comments didn't relate to the policy changes. Some of those matters have been noted for the next review of the policy in much the same way as the digital payments item that we've included this time. That was something that was raised during the last consultation we had in 2021. And as a result of the comments received during the consultation, we made a couple of additional changes to the draft policy as highlighted in paragraph 8 of the report, in respect of some guidance around payments and clarity on vehicles which are exempt from the tinted window specification. As noted in paragraph 9 of the report, there were a number of comments about the proposal to extend the target date for licensed vehicles to achieve net zero from 2030 to 2045. Officers have retained that policy in the final proposal in the final policy as it aligns with our net zero targets adopted by both councils. But the committee are obviously welcome to further amend the policy in respect to that criteria if they consider that appropriate. Officers are of the view that the proposed policy strikes a balance between protection of the public, the need to meet our safeguarding responsibilities, our corporate priorities, and also allows reasonable time to phase in some of the changes for existing licence holders. We'll send through some guidance on any changes to the trade by newsletter once the new policy is published. There is one proposed amendment to the policy, which has been added since the report was drafted, and this comes as a result of recent liaison with other Oxfordshire authorities. This is an extra line at the end of the existing condition 4 to state that drivers must inform the police that they're a licensed driver when they're arrested or interviewed under caution. This will assist the police in ensuring they're able to share information in a timely and appropriate manner and ensure we're consistent with our neighbouring authorities. So just to be very clear, obviously that wasn't included in the consultation that was sent out, but officers don't feel this is controversial or overly onerous. I don't have anything further to add. I'm happy to take any questions.
Right, thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Skinner.
I think you mentioned corporate policies.
Yes,
Where do we find those?
they would be, bear with me, let me go back to the report. They're in section 2, the strategic priorities are in section 2 of the report, which is at the bottom of page 6, I think, on the agenda. They're providing healthy, sustainable and inclusive communities with our relevant strategic priorities for licensing and community safety as a whole, isn't it?
Councillor Patel.
So it's a little bit on the procedural side of it. So most of the report talks about Southern Vale. We're sitting at the Vale Committee.
Yep.
So if we,
If you digressed.
yes. So essentially, how does that actually function with SAP?
So at the moment, we don't have any differences. We have had differences in the past, so we're able to maintain that if needs be. It doesn't have to be like for like.
Okay.
I can't lie and say it's obviously not easy or wrong.
I wasn't sure because it's further south. We're not a joint committee, so I sort of wondered how that
If you want to insert
sounds like our policies are aligned there, or we can't just have a single report.
And obviously, once I've said it, this will be in place for a couple of years, and then we'll have to harmonise with however LGR works out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Councillor Skinner.
So both the speakers mentioned how long it takes to get a license approved. Do we publish statistics about how many licenses we issue, how long it takes to issue them, how many licenses we refuse? So we keep.
We do have some statistic on that. We don't have an awful lot in respect to the length of time. What we aim to do is, once an application is complete, i.e. we've got all the relevant requirements, for a vehicle, it will be the form, the insurance, the compliance steps, B5, everything. We aim to issue within 5 days of processing that, basically. So, but it will take us, I think on our timescales on our website at the moment, I believe, say we aim to start processing applications within 4 weeks of receipt, because they can apply online. So we'll definitely look at it within 4 weeks. And I know we're well within that at the moment.
And I mean, I suspect it's not the first time there have been complaints about how long it takes.
We haven't had any recently, no. I know there were issues, particularly during in COVID, when we had to adopt new systems. Had some issues then, but no, we haven't had any complaints recently at all.
Yeah, we sort of fast track changes of vehicles. So if somebody's had an accident, we'll fast track those applications to get them back on the road. And I'm not aware of any incidents, to be honest.
So what sort of indicators does the department look at when it's judging its performance?
It would be probably, to be fair, to people being the application being processed within those timescales that we have on our website. So, which, as I said, I know we're doing at the moment. And obviously Diane would be asking questions if she was doing myself. Yeah. So,
does the department share work? I mean, what else are you responsible for?
So we deal with charity collections, Gambling Licensing Act, payment licenses, street traders. We deal with Safety Advisory Group for events as well. So it's quite a wide remit for the team. And obviously we've got the dealing with applications, dealing with compliance, prosecutions, going out to events. So working at things like Truck Festival, which is coming up, and Regatta, which is coming up. Summer's usually quite busy.
And do we look at our performance in relation to other councils?
I've not been aware that we've done
Not
benchmarking
formally, but I know that we've discussed that. I know in group meetings. So.
Yeah.
Okay. And finally, we have seen these points in the report, and the responses to them.
Yes,
you haven't given those back.
They're appended to the committee reports.
But they're not distributed to the people who may join the consultation.
Well, the comments we received were anonymised, so we don't actually know who
made.
We can't
Sorry, I didn't.
So we don't run the consultation, it's run by the consultation team and they get to the anonymised data. So I couldn't go back to people. That's what I'm saying. I'm having a guess that the 45 comments came from the association. It's a reasonable guess.
But the full responses,
Yeah,
as you receive in the committee report. And
Does it not just feel as a matter of sort of public relations that it might be a good idea to let the professional people, the associations and so on, see the responses?
You've seen the response.
yeah, they have the speaker, yes.
They have
Yeah,
seen-
Oh, there has.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Well, there is
They're in the
I'm
report.
asking the wrong question.
Yeah, sorry, they're in the report.
Yes, but have you seen the report?
Yes.
Can I respond to that? The
No,
only thing,
I'm afraid.
no, the councillor's just asked a question.
Okay.
All we were told was about appendix, whatever it is, which had the new policy. We did not given any other information as to where the responses were or anything like that.
There it is attached to that very same report.
All in one agenda.
Have a look in between.
Well,
Perhaps can I'll come back to you. Councillor Whiteman?
That's okay, I'm just double checking something with the DVLA. 2 seconds, I'll come back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Gover.
Yes, I think actually kind of two moments, just again, 2 points, just made by speakers actually kind of, struck me. So just one of them regarding this claim that, just there is 2-week processing in Wolverhampton Council. And the other, just again, that if it's like, just the minimum wage, £6 per hour, which is like half of national minimum wage. Could you comment on that, please?
So I know Wolverhampton's obviously a very, very large licensing department. They license tens of thousands of vehicles. They will have a much, much bigger team than us. They have a very good online system. So I would not be surprised if they were processing things a little bit quicker than us, to be fair. With the best will in the world, I would love a brand new online system. I'm unclear whether I'm going to be able to get the funding to do that before LGR. In respect of the tariff, I don't know if I want to comment on that.
Yes, I think the comment that Mr. Atkinson made about £6, that was the difference between he pays his drivers as opposed to how much they're getting paid.
Another professional driver in the driving that is not subjected to anywhere near the legislation that we are is earning £6 an hour more than a taxi driver. And that's just unacceptable.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't comment at this stage in process.
The council look over that, you said information about the tariff. I can do. I know that's a cabinet decision rather than
Okay.
but I can do something next day.
Okay, fine.
Yes, because tariffs really aren't the responsibility of this committee. Don't have no say on it. Councillor Whiteman?
Yeah, apologies. I'm looking for a point of clarity, really. So I should just probably declare to the team that I am an automotive engineer. So I'm a little bit confused. So in appendices A.2 and B.2, so in relation to window tinting. So obviously I understand that some licensed vehicles have window tinting done after they've purchased the vehicle to add to executive security, what people want in executive cars, etc. Can I just check with officers the position point here, right? So front windscreen, standard OEM, so UK law is minimum of 75% light transmission. We're not looking to change that. So front side windows, again, standard OEM, UK law. And for those who don't know, OEM is original equipment manufacturers, like a branded company, Volvo, Mercedes, etc. is 70%. The old rule was 70%, and we're saying that there's no change to the current consultation. But with the rear window, so that's obviously behind the B pillar. So that's the obviously the B pillar sits behind the driver. Obviously, there's no legal limit, right? So from an OEM perspective, we don't have any legal limit put on us from a homologation perspective for tinting. Obviously, some taxis were often required to have clear glass so that enforcement officers and public could see inside. So just to check, are we now saying that we're happy for it to be to 30%, but only if the vehicle has got an approved CCTV system installed? Is that the position point on the rear?
No. At present, the CCTV thing is something that license holders are doing because the vehicle won't be in compliance with policy at the moment. So forget the CCTV. That's not something we're requiring them to do. That's something that drivers
that's
are
optional
doing at the moment because our current policy is 70%. So the change is to go from 70% of light transmission down to 30. So we are allowing the windows to be more heavily tinted.
in the rear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And the CCTV position is just purely optional down to drivers' integrity, whatever they want to
Something
do.
we strongly recommend, but yeah, definitely an optional at the moment. We're aware that might be overtaken by central government, but that's for them.
So I'm a little bit confused by some of the consultation responses then, but that's clear to me because obviously obviously everything up to the B pillar is governed by law. Obviously DFT, etc., and is governed under homologation for car companies. So, and obviously everything from B pillar back is optional. Okay, thank you for clearing that up. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, clarity, just so I'm not confused, the changes to tinting are nothing to do with us. It's national legislation that we are applying, right?
It's best practice guidance from the DFT.
Okay,
That's why.
So it is not a policy we are introducing. That was my understanding.
We have a policy of 70, but because national guidance is changing,
so we're adapting to it.
Yes,
great.
Are there any other questions for officers? In that case, can you? Yes.
So I wasn't here in January, so obviously I did see draft and I could have looked at it. I was a councillor, so there's nothing stopping me from looking at it, but I wasn't looking at licensing missing things. I can see there are issues here. And I can see that certainly for the Vale, we don't actually have any taxi. It seems that most of it is on south. We are very shallow. What I'm trying to say. What is the possibility of delaying an implementation of policy? That's really the question I'm asking. Is it a good idea to do that? Is there a need to re-review? Or do we feel at this point?
That is a discussion point, isn't it? A debating point, yes. Something you could propose. I don't see any. I must admit, personally, I don't see any reason to do that. But many of the issues that come up aren't directly related to this policy, and very few of them are. And as far as I'm concerned, the comments that relate directly to the policy have been addressed adequately. So I see no reason to delay further. But I'm not, this is open to the committee, I think, now. Councillor Whiteman.
Yeah, thank you. So a couple of questions. So with regards to officers, so with regards to GDPR, privacy and data controller liabilities, so again, sort of slightly comes under the CCTV again. So have we fully audited the data protection implications for drivers using these vehicles, where they're using them obviously for private family use? And does the council or the driver bear the primary legal liability for data breaches or footage requests? Can I just get some clarity?
Do you mean for CCTV? Sorry, just to be clear.
Yeah. So under the CCTV system.
When somebody's getting them installed, we get them to confirm they are registered with the ICO as the data controller. So they're all doing that. So they're responsible for that, any of those recordings. Beyond that, we've got a guidance document that we've created to publish alongside this policy. It is just guidance in respect of CCTV. So hopefully that would address any of the queries in respect to.
Okay.
But yeah, and some of that goes into the technical aspect as well, because we're aware some drivers want a bit of guidance on what systems can do.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yeah. I've just got a couple of questions. So the other one I've got is sort of the cashless mandate versus rural connectivity, really. So I always find it hilarious that Oxfordshire has been picked as the seat for AI, because I can't even get a consistent phone reception going from East Hendred to Whitney on a daily basis. so what protections or exemptions can be in place for drivers when a digital payment system fails due to poor rural mobile infrastructure, and how? And obviously, there's lots of comments in here, right, around merchant transaction fees, and I get the point that the responses from the council state around, oh, it's only 10p here, it's only 10p there, but and I don't know. Obviously, you've got drivers in the room, and maybe they can answer the number of trips or fares they would be expecting to transact in a day, but it does all add up. And you've only got to look at small businesses, so separate to taxis, but small shops that might only be doing 15, 20 transactions a day, sometimes all under 10, 15 pounds. That percentage does eke up. Now, I know that there are more transactional apps now, so you don't need a little card machine anymore. You can do everything off a phone with things like iZet or PayPal and things like that. But there is large places in our community where there is no mobile phone reception, and especially on certain networks. So if that driver was dropping, I don't know, I can use parts of my own village as an example, down the Hanny Road, there is absolutely no connection with anything that's on the 3 network from halfway down the Hanny Road to halfway down Steventon Road. And there's probably 20 homes and a business site there. So how do we, what exemptions can be in place for that if that digital payment fails? If it's just not an option, because people don't carry cash, right? So
this is the challenge. It's going to be difficult where obviously if you're going home and you know that the reception's quite bad around where you live, you may well know in advance that payment's not going to go through. I suspect it's going to be more one of those things which is local knowledge that drivers will know where the payments aren't likely to go through. Because obviously we're not sometimes, and then they'd have to go and get some cash from somewhere or make alternative arrangements with the driver. So I would suspect that most people probably wouldn't necessarily rely on definitely being able to make that electronic payment if they're going to a more rural location. But that would be something, hopefully the driver will be able to say, I'm just to make you aware, the electronic payment probably won't work where you're going to, that I know the reception there isn't very good.
I can't see that being a hugely different situation now, because I think a lot of don't think that a lot of drivers already take
they already do.
Take card payments anyway, so I can't see an issue of signal being that won't be impacted by this policy.
Well, but signal is increasingly worse, and where passengers accept cashless options, right? Sometimes in some areas, but if that driver was in a dead signal zone and the car machine fails to connect, and they risk being an overtake payment, and then do they risk being accused of violating the licensing terms?
But
you're saying there's protection. There's protection there, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Skinner.
And I also agree.
I find it quite difficult to deal with these sorts of things when there are no numbers. So reference has been made to the number of licenses in the Vale, and it would be quite interesting. I mean, when I asked what sort of strategic priorities you had, I think I expected to find something about whether we wanted to encourage taxis or not. So there is no statement about that. I mean, if I believed everything I heard, clearly we have a policy to discourage taxis because we don't do the rate reviews on time, and it takes a long time to get a new license and a lot of expense. But I doubt whether that's real. But why don't we have more figures? I mean, what is the number of licenses that we have at present?
So Hackney Parish vehicles, you've got 195 in Vale at the last count.
And is that an upward trend?
That was 4 down from the previous month. Previous month,
Well, I was thinking more in years.
So I'll go back. There was 2 seconds. So there were 260 in July. 229. Yes, I think that's Hackney's. That's Hackney's, and obviously private hire vehicles. We have 67 of those at the moment in Vale. And drivers are 395 drivers in Vale at the moment.
I also, of course, sorry, but I heard a story from a taxi driver who said that the Vale asked for good character certificates from everybody but in a way which is quite different from the way that Oxford City asks.
We require them from if you lived abroad for certain periods.
Yeah.
But that's straight from the national standards.
Yeah.
It's not local.
I'm not sure what city do differently. I can ask them.
But we apply the best practice guidance,
Which is what?
from the Department of Transport.
Which is what? How many years?
Yeah, I'll find the existing policies. That's not proposed to change.
Yeah, we're supposing change ones.
No, there's no change to
I
that.
mean, this was specifically about immigrants applying who are required to get, or according to this story, required to get a certificate because of the length of time they require, which is more than 5 years.
Anybody who can't get hasn't lived in the country since the age of 10,
Which is the age of criminal responsibility, isn't it? So
because we need to check that drivers have got a clear criminal background.
well, that's
But that is
actually
apparently
immigrants. It could be
different.
anybody who's lived abroad really
Yeah.
length of time.
Yeah.
So somebody might have lived in the USA for 10 years and then come back. That would be cast in exactly the same way. So it doesn't matter necessarily where they were born. It's where they've lived.
Right.
It's to cover criminal checks, basically. So if you've gone to America and committed a heinous crime over there and then moved back, we would want to know that rather than not license that person, probably.
And it's not really a very practical solution, is it?
It's all we can do in respect of checking criminal records for people who've lived abroad, unfortunately. We do have drivers who do have them come back with criminal offences on. So
why is it different from
I don't know. I don't know. I can't think on Car Park City. All I know we apply the recommended Department of Transport standards.
I'll ask my last question then. I had no idea that taxis required a roof line. I mean, that's basically should be how you tell a taxi from a private hire.
Yeah.
Did everybody know that? Yes. Just me. I don't think got taxis. So.
Councillor Whiteman. Councillor Whiteman.
Yeah, so obviously the speakers who came spoke about obviously the daily vehicle check logs. So obviously with regards to that, daily safety check, and I hear what you're saying, gentlemen, with regards to checking vehicles, but technically under the highway code and when we pass our driving test, we're supposed to do visual inspections on our cars every time before we use them, but I'm not sure any of us ever do. So what training are we going to provide as a council to help ensure that they're the checks that we would be looking for, and obviously that those drivers are trained up, and then that sort of consistent CPD sort of for them? Because I get that separation between obviously there's our policy as the two councils, there's Department for Transport policy, etc. But at the end of the day, not everybody is efficient or efficient in knowing how their car actually works, and checking tyres, pressures, visual defects, damage, etc. So are we going to provide any training or a video of what we're expecting to make sure that we're helping the industry? And then the other question I've got is what I think is a bit of like a grey workforce financial penalty. So the group 2 medical checks, obviously turning 45, I'm not sure I quite understand the 45. Is that a DFT thing as well, or is this something that we have come up with, that age limit? And I'll come back to that question. So CPD on the checks, are we going to train people what kind of checks we're expecting on the daily safety checks, and obviously how they have to log that or where they're logging it? And then why is it 45? Is that us setting that age, or is that DFT?
So the vehicle checks, there is a quite a straightforward checklist through on the DOT website. Well, that's what we've linked through from the policy document. And it is things like check your wipers are working, check the horn works. It's not overly onerous. I would genuinely hope that all drivers are able to check their tyre pressures. I'd be very surprised if that wasn't the case.
We can provide additional guidance if we felt it was
If anybody's unsure on anything that there is in this checklist, then we can look into sort of getting some guidance. Really, I'm more than happy to do that. But I don't think any of it is particularly complicated from looking at it when we actually drafted this up. So, the 45, I think, is DFT. Yeah, it comes from the DFT.
Okay, it's just going back to the daily logs and checks then. I am going to slightly disagree. As somebody who frequently ends up showing people at petrol stations how to actually inflate their tyres, I think it would be a great touch for us to work with the taxi association to come up with a short video. It doesn't have to cost a bomb to do it, but about the basics. If we're expecting people to do these checks, I think there's some responsibility that sits with us to make sure we demonstrate what those checks are. And I understand, right? Because everyone's got a manual in their car, which, colleagues of mine in my industry spend ages doing IKEA style pictures for how you do your tyres and where you fill up your fluids, but it doesn't mean anyone ever reads it. So the only thing I would ask is that something that we could look at to actually work with the industry more hand in glove? Because I feel the anger from the table opposite, and I just feel we need to look at ways we can work better together to encourage this industry, because we have an aging population, we have increasing lacks of rural transport to get people around, and taxis are becoming, essential. And the cost of running your own car, many families are having to make the choice to go from 2 cars to 1 car, so therefore a taxi becomes essential. So is that something we could look into, just working with the industry to get some videos done?
Yes,
or anything to help them?
The association of buildings would like to do that, yes. They're willing to help, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we can minute that.
I'm very good at teaching tyre pressures. I'm always happy to help.
Thank you.
Mostly find me at the BP garage. But yeah, I think it would be a nice thing to do. And thanks for the information about the sort of the workforce medicals, that is a DFT. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Gover.
Thank you. So that was self-advertising. Okay. So just my question would be, I understand just current software, actually that's the biggest obstacle, just to have some productivity improvement. Maybe just we could provide recommendation for the cabinet to consider, just replacing the software within this.
We have an option that there was a meeting last week where the Department of Business, I want to say Enterprise and Trade, possibly, they're doing some online forms. So we're hoping to join that beta and hoping to sort of jump in with that. And then what we're hoping to do is to move that across to tax licensing. It's not necessarily our software that's the problem. It's the fact we don't have online applications.
Okay, so my understanding was it's online, and then just within 4 weeks, it's considered.
So people email us applications, or they put them in on a portal, basically. We don't have, so people have to unfortunately still print a form off or fill it in on the computer and then send us the form.
Okay, so that's really
which means we then have to key in all the information on it. So
Councillor Patel.
So, question for officers. I don't know enough about the application process. Thank you for telling us that you emailed them in. Now I'd like to address one point made by a gentleman over there, that if we have information that already exists and then someone's already applying for a new license, but then we reject based on what we already know.
Yeah.
And I get the process, the way it works, and that I'm perfectly fine with that. With planning, we do have a pre-application process. Do we have anything similar with taxi licensing?
If somebody emailed in and said, I've had a license refused before or revoked before because of X, would I be likely to? We will answer that question honestly based on our current policy. So if we look at somebody's application and think, yes, even though maybe 6 years has passed us, it's still not the 7 years or 10 years, depending on whatever the offence was.
Right.
We would tell them that, but the information, to be fair, is there in our policy on the website, so they'd be able to find it for themselves in any case.
It doesn't then stop somebody submitting an application. And
Right. Okay.
So it's not wrong that they were able to apply.
Again, this when it comes back to us not having an online platform, because that would then at least give you a pre-processing step where they could check before they put application.
People do the emails. Yeah, they emails at the moment.
Is that something you're aware of that you can ask?
You can't really speak to them.
I can't even speak to them. Oh, okay.
Not in this public debate, I don't think.
Okay, understood. All right. Well, thank you for clarifying that. I did have a separate point. I can wait. Or I can go.
I think you probably are.
Sally?
Yeah, so my last question really, or I feel like this just needs to be raised through, and obviously this is one really, I guess, for the administration and the cabinet. You know, pushing the zero emission target to 2045 is a severe regression in where this council stood when it was elected. And I understand the comments that have come back with regards to cost of living crisis, high upfront costs of electric vehicles, information around charging infrastructure. So, and again, obviously, Chair, to state, I work in the industry and I'm an electric vehicle engineer, not for a brand that is available in the UK. But the recent energy crisis only shows you that actually the fickleness of fuel, and where electric vehicles are going to be cheaper. You've got the upfront cost of a EV is coming down, especially with new market saturation with deals like Octopus Fleet, for example. You can get an EV for I think less than £200 a month. The point about lack of rural charging infrastructure with current battery ranges, I don't think stacks up. Oxfordshire has one of the best charging networks, I think, in the country, and in the Vale, obviously, we've supported that with our car park charging as part of that. And again, more money is coming out all the time from government around charging infrastructure, home charging. And the comment around unpaid hours searching for or occupied public chargers, that is certainly something I've personally never had that issue in Oxfordshire. I've had it in every other county, but definitely not in this county. And the wheelchair accessible vehicle dilemma. So I'd like to understand a bit more about what that segment looks like with regards to vehicles, but there is now increasing MPV and obviously even up to transit vans that are now electric. I just feel like 2045 is just kicking the can down the road for, when you look at some of the comments around clean air, you think about, idling in marketplaces. It just doesn't seem to fit with me. I think it makes a mockery of this council's climate action plans, to be honest. I hear what both sides of the story are saying, but again, I just think there's things this council can do to help make electric vehicles attractive, working with, companies working with the electric. I mean, the electric chargers, for example, on our own facilities, why can't we cut a deal with the taxi drivers and give them a preferred rate? These are all things that have been paid for by government, installed by government at their cost. Surely we could be a bit more proactive here and work with the industry and say, do you know what? We'd love to get you into electric vehicles because actually there's a longer term benefit in cost because there's less servicing, less maintenance issues, etc. So there's a longer term ownership reduction in cost. Although you still have the issues with tyres, guys, I'm sorry. But with regards to, those operators that we have, can we work with Easy Charge or whoever and say, actually, there's a special rate, there's a special card that licensed taxi holders, can access, and they're getting 20p off a kilowatt hour or something like that. And, most of those places are completely empty outside of rush hour or peak hours. They'd be perfect for taxi companies to be able to utilise to charge their fleets. It really sits poorly with me that we're pushing this back to 2045. I can see both sides of the table, but there is so many more options now for electric vehicles, and I just feel we're just pushing something down the road, and it doesn't sit well with me at all. I can't vote today because I'm dialing in electronically, but hopefully Councillor Patel will pick this up.
Yes, Councillor Whiteman, you kind of stole my thunder there a little bit, but thank you for raising that one. So I definitely don't agree with us pushing this to 2045. My biggest issue around this, and I've read all the comments, I see what the residents say, I see what the association does, and I understand that. the problem I have with this is, as a council, we've pushed this. It's come from our own climate team, but nationally, it's quite different. So we're now proposing that we're not going to require this 2045. Government is proposing that actually we're going to stop 2030, 2035. Those are the dates they're giving. So rather than us having a separate policy, which is largely meaningless, can we just remove that line from policy altogether and just say we're going to follow national policy instead? So
I'm sure we could.
yeah, because right now we're saying 2030, but nationally they're not talking about 2030 for phase out of sale, 2035 for phase out of other things. So let's stick to whatever's being done nationally, and let's not have a policy or match whatever's happening nationally.
Okay.
I think it depends what other policies the council have got, because we wouldn't want the different parts of the organisation to have different
I don't think it would
policies.
necessarily impacted on the policies. The only thing, I think the reason for having it in there is so that drivers can plan, so they have an idea of where they're going. So that was the reason for keeping it.
No, I understand that. Because
I get where
that's part of the issue that we're moving from 2030 to 2045. That's a 15-year shift.
Yeah.
That's a massive shift. You can't plan for that.
Yeah.
It took me 10 years to plan for switching myself to it. You know, and I don't run a business, so it takes time. So I don't want to then go, oh, hang on, I've got there and now the policy's shifted. Yeah. So actually I need to shift up. So it is.
And I'll just brief. Is that what you said? There's a lot of pushback from the trade because there's no way we could be ready. It's just impossible to ready by 2030. So the trade has been pushing back hard to get this moved because the infrastructure for us isn't there. We have said no, we need to be able to. So we can't plan for them.
No, and I understand that. So rather than us shifting,
you should really be
sorry.
Yes. With public speech.
My point still stands. I don't want us to be shifting it down the road. I would like us to stick to what is happening nationally, because then any schemes that come in, we can then piggyback off of those, and we're not doing something independent.
So would that be a change we could make?
Yeah, I don't think it really impacts
Yes,
the policy itself.
yeah, the main word.
What does the rest of the committee think about that?
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I agree in principle, but I think I would not want to make the decision here. I think it needs wider exposure because the council has objectives about decarbonisation and so on. I wouldn't want us to make one that was 7 line.
Yeah, I actually agree with Councillor Spina, because again, I mean, just maybe we would like to achieve it really, really fast, but then just if it's like, just, possible, but also kind of, just again, let's have it planned on June and kind of move there. So just again, kind of we have more time and people have more time kind of to plan ahead. And we had a kind of not quite good experience with kind of putting really, really ambitious goals, which were kind of just really put back, not quite achievable. So yeah, I would prefer, just to move slow and steady, but having much better chance of achieving objectives.
Yes, I think perhaps you're right at this stage, changing policy, particularly since it's going to be updated in another couple of years anyway.
But equally, we could change it to the council's goals. Policy.
Which is
I agree with putting
that.
specifics into something at this level is quite unnecessary if we can simply refer to. Now, that may not be as obvious as national policy, which we should make it very obvious. I would have thought check with a cabinet member.
Because obviously at the moment we've said the aim is for, we've not said they must be. That's kind of different. So probably because we recognise that this is going to be reviewed again in a couple of years and then hopefully a more firm target. The other thing that might be useful for members to be aware of just very briefly is that when we did the consultation, we asked some questions about the barriers for switching to electric vehicles. That wasn't part of the consultation, but it was data that our climate team wanted. So we've given them lots of that, and sort of just opening up the spreadsheet now, I can see a lot of charging points on ramps as being a very big thing. So hopefully that gives them the ability to go away and speak to those people who maintain those ramps to be able to do something about that. So fingers crossed. that'd be nice.
So just so I can summarise, where did everyone fall?
I think I don't think we should change it at the moment.
But this is a change, right? We're changing from 2030 to.
Oh yes, fine, but we should accept that. Accept the officer's recommendations and we do
We
that.
should accept that we shift by 15 years, rather than saying the sale of diesel and petrol is going to be phased out by 2035 as it is.
I suppose part of my argument is this is just a taxi policy. It's not the general policy of the council, and that's not what we're trying to decide here. I think the change was made just to align with the rest of the council's policies.
Yeah.
And probably just going on with the rest of the council's policies is probably the thing to do at the moment, I would say.
I will not be waiting for that.
Okay.
But I'm outnumbered as it is.
Any other comments? Oh, Councillor Whiteman.
Yeah, to just go, if I was there, I wouldn't be voting for either. But just to go back to what we were stating around, there just feels like there's a hostility here. For some of this policy obviously comes down from central government. Some of it is sitting against this council's own ambitions. But I do feel that as a council, we're responsible to signpost and to work with our community. And, I don't know how much the Taxi Association are aware of the grants that are currently available to them for chargers at home. The discounts of up to £3,000 to £7,000 on electric vehicles. There's all these sorts of things. And I just feel that, I'd certainly like to see the cabinet member potentially maybe looking at more of a wider education to obviously this additional set of people inside, working inside and living inside the Vale to help them achieve global carbon emission goals and how we can help with that from an education perspective, linking in with the grants, all that kind of stuff. We take money for licenses. We should certainly be giving signposting and education back and trying to help this industry move forwards to zero emission.
I'm happy to see that notice of comments, but again, I don't think we should change the taxi policy to do this. I think it's a wider issue.
We have given some guidance on the grants. It's in our last newsletter that we sent out. So we gave them some links for the grants for people who live in Oxfordshire and drive electric vehicles to, the scheme to help those without off-street parking to charge their vehicles. I think there's also an event coming up fairly soon that we're going to publicise in our next newsletter for switch to electric vehicles that the climate team mentioned. So there should be something in the next newsletter as well.
Cool. And maybe one of the notes, Chair, you can make back to the cabinet member is around, really pushing this agenda and being able to help and maybe looking at our own charging facilities that sit on our own landscape and how we can work with the industry to look at preferred rates and stuff like that. I think there's more that we can do on that side of things rather than just kicking the can down the road.
Do we have any other comments before we go through a recommendation? I think we've heard lots of discussion, lots of different issues, many of which are not directly related to the policy, but related to other things like the amount of money that taxis can make and that sort of thing, which again is not related directly to the policy. So what I would recommend, because it has been out for consultation, we have had, I think, full responses from officers, that we should consider the results of the consultation at Appendix A, which I'm sure we've all done, and subject to any further amendments, approve the adoption of the joint taxi licensing policy at Appendix B.
There was one amendment. And so that was it. The additional line in respect of the driver notifying the police when they're being interviewed or arrested to say that they are a licensed driver. The benefit the information shared.
I think that's good bad, yeah. Would I have a proposal for that recommendation? Well, in that case, I will propose it. Can I have a seconder?
I will second it.
Councillor Gerber. Can we have a vote on that? recommendation.
Chair, can I add more? Just can we add that it's not for the policy, but can we add this recommendation to the cabinet to consider, just funding for the new software to hold the
I don't think we'll get it from central government, then it'll be free. That would be much nicer.
It would be, yeah. Anyway, so we're just saying you really need it, and I feel
It would be lovely.
actually
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
convenient for everyone.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
If you could take a vote on the policy, then to propose a second for that recommendation, that would be right.
Yeah.
That could take a vote on the policy.
Yeah.
Three in favour. Those against? One against? In that case, the policy is passed. So, the recommendation.
So, yes, the draft policy reading tonight.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The veil now on the policy. Now, what was your recommendation?
Yes, to improve department productivity and reduce the consideration time, just speed up the licensing. Just
In a nutshell.
consider just procurement and installation of funding for the new software. I don't know which one, but
Maybe this is to go to the cabinet member.
I think so. Yeah, that is to the cabinet. Yeah.
I just wonder, I mean, we're clearly not going to spend money on a new computer system at this point in time. We're ridiculous.
We just spent on planning. We just spent on
I'm
planning
not saying the
software.
planning system would reduce the loss money.
Well, we do basically. But I just wonder whether we could generalise it a bit and ask the licensing department to have a serious look at how they could speed up the response time rather than making something specific.
And I think we've probably got sufficient in the ministers.
So throughout the report, it was one of the biggest things that came up is not having a decent application mechanism. So I don't think it's something we can necessarily just say, oh, can we generalize that anymore? I think it is relevant.
I don't disagree, but I really don't think
But I agree with your point. I don't see how we're going to spend money seeing we're being disbanded next year.
so.
Absolutely. Yeah. We do it that.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Firstly, not next year, but the year after. So just about 2 years. And then
We're not going to make any
secondly,
spending.
if receiving documents requires manual processing, it cannot be sped up. Just again, we need to have digital processing, and then just an officer look, just everything already in the system. So kind of one way or another, it should be done.
I think we've got sufficient recommendation to go to cabinet there. So can I close? Oh,
Sorry, I'm going to take back my last point. That is very valid. If we have a database where everything's logged, it makes transition much easier.
yes. I then close the meeting at 3:15. And I thank everyone.